Hi gang, Rob here. It is the morning of 1 April 2017, and this video is not an April Fool's joke, by the way. Not an April Fool's joke. I'm doing sort of a show and tell this morning of a knife sent to me by a YouTube subscriber, and it's a custom fixed blade by a maker known as, there we go, Big Chris. And I'm not gonna make up the content of the introductory phase of this video. I'm gonna let Drew's email, Drew is my subscriber, kind of let you know who this maker is and what this knife is by reading the email he sent me while you gaze lovingly upon this sweet little EDC fixed blade. So this is Drew's email message. Rob, I went through a stint back in the winter where I felt like I just had to have a small-ish fixed blade. I was looking at fiddlebacks and bark rivers. There were a few bark rivers to which I came close, but for what they cost, I couldn't come up with the right combination of steel, handle material, and blade thickness, so I just let it simmer. Then, around the beginning of December, I saw a post on Blade Forums pop up in the Custom Knives by Maker forum from Big Chris. Chris is a custom fixed blade maker who does what appear to be exceptional regrinds, and his claim to fame is extremely thinly ground, comfortable, high-performance cutters. Can you see why I was interested, guys, in having this knife on the channel? He works in a variety of steels and blade stocks, everything from 01 all the way up to 10V in 65 thousandths stock. Can you believe that? Anyhow, I had been eyeballing that 65 thousandths 10V knife, but it was a little too big for what I wanted. His small business Saturday thread opened, and in it was this knife I have sent you. Some of his models have names, others, including this one, don't. At least I don't think this one does. Here are the specs. Blade stock, 94 thousandths thick, actually a little thicker than that in the tang area. You can see at the spine it is reduced in thickness ever so slightly. So the stock thickness in the handle area, if you look, there's a step in the tang, is about 115 thousandths. So he's ground the knife forward of the handle down to 94, about 3/32. We're calling this a high flat grind. I'll buy that. Super thin cutting edge. I did measure this, guys. It's about 21 thousandths behind the edge. And the handle scales are red dyed box elder burl. Okay. The overall length of the knife is 7.28 inches in its original form. It's a little under 6 3/4 right now, and we'll get into how that is as we go along. I continue with Drew's email. I received the knife and it was great. I even spoke to Chris on the phone a few weeks before this popped up. I asked him about handles and sizes because what I wanted was something like Bark River's Bravo Necker or PSK, but with a bigger blade. In my mind, a blade that size might as well be in a slip joint because those are more fun to play with and they cut just fine. But I digress. Chris said he only does full-size handles, and the handle on the knife I bought from him, though not particularly large by any stretch, was definitely full-sized. Now, guys, I measure this at 3.5 from the tip of the blade to the front of the handle. So if it was 7.28 inches long, that means the handle was just under 4 inches to start with. Now it's down around 3 3/8. Okay. So Drew says, I took it to my 1x30 sander, and this is what I came up with. I've attached an image for you in which you can see side by side the before and after shapes. I don't have a split image to compare before and after handle thickness, but I did attach the image of the original handle thickness so you can imagine. It's much thinner and about 3/4 of an inch shorter, probably actually about 5/8, it looks like to me, and not nearly as wide. Now the knife has a functional finger guard because he actually removed some material here, actually from the bottom of the handle, so this stops your finger. Let's take a look at these before and afters before I continue. There we go. See what we're talking about in this area of the knife? And so we continue. I would call this a neck knife handle or a caper handle on a knife with a 3 1/4-ish long blade. I forgot to measure before I sent this to you, but maybe you can do that in your review. The blade to handle ratio is a lot closer to 1:1. Prior to this, I had only done blade reshapes with that sander. I wanted to try my hand at a handle. I think that the handle is now as small as it can possibly be and still be usable enough to justify the size of the blade. I would kind of agree. It is a pinky hanging over handle, but the pinky does sort of anchor the handle. It is usable. Absolutely, it is usable. If it were any shorter, your pinky would be hanging way off here, and then it would just be insecure. So I kind of agree with Drew. It is small and thin, the handle, and at first tried to get a good, hearty, high control grip up at the front of the knife like I normally would. That's okay, but the knife works much better in the saber and pinch grips when the control and stability come from your pinky and ring finger, and then your front fingers just guide the blade. It's not perfect, as grinding wood and metal at the same time is a little tricky, but it's good enough for me. I'm sure you'll play with the handle enough to get a good feel for it. As it were, the puns just keep coming. After sanding the handle, I wasn't sure what to expect from the wood, so I gave it a quick spray with some polyurethane sealer, then sanded that down a little bit. Now for the blade. It's 94 thousandths thick of 61 HRC CPM 154. It's nearly fully flat ground, 1 inch wide, and Chris grinds exceptionally thin. He says he didn't measure the thinness behind the edge because he doesn't have a caliper, but I did. Then I decided to sharpen it, he says, after adding the sharpening notch, which still could probably use a little bump forward. And yes, Drew, you are correct. It could. See the flare there? Okay. I love the way the convex edge slices, so I laid this down on sandpaper and convexed the edge, then applied a micro bevel with my Lansky, as I often do because my convex skill is still developing. As of my sending you this knife, I've cut an apple or 3 with this edge. Now it gets grippy when wet. It push cuts receipt paper easily for me, which means it ought to push cut your Natchez catalogs too. It was very easy and rewarding to sharpen. See how you like to cut with it. I sent you this knife to review because I enjoy watching your reviews. I don't usually watch TV, but sometimes I like to still have that experience. I also wanted to spread Chris's name around. He doesn't market like Bark River or Fiddleback do, and my guess is that he doesn't plan to. But his work is exceptional, and I think there are a lot of people out there who would enjoy his knives that might not otherwise find out about him. The people who buy his knives love them, and their performance seems to be worthy of high praise. He's been working on a design to take into blade sports competitions, and I think he deserves to be there. I think his website might be outdated, but here's the URL, etc. And I will put a link to Chris's website in the description of this video, as well as his Instagram handle, which is big_Chris_custom_custom knives. And then Drew finishes his email by saying, I hope you have fun reviewing the knife, and I look forward to hearing what you have to say about it. And we'll get into it. All right. So Drew shipped a knife in this ambidextrous collector knives sheath, and this is, I guess, designed for neck carry, which would be kind of odd with these two eyelets, but mostly it's an inside the pocket sheath, I guess. And with this short handle, you could certainly carry it that way, and oh, what a lot of blade you get. That's 3.5 inches to the handle, about 3 1/4 to the back of the plunge grind. Just a super functional drop point. with the point slightly above the center line of the handle, so you could skin with it. You could pierce with it. I guess it cuts paper. Drew says it does. Let's see. Yeah, it does. I ran out of Natchez catalogs, guys. I'm using good old-fashioned phone book paper. I hate that. It makes a mess. Why do I do that? And like I said, 21 thousandths thick behind the edge. That's just putting the tips of the calipers above the polished part of the edge and taking a thickness reading. I'm not sure I super dig this short little handle, but I understand what Drew was after. You know, he wanted to have a very carryable package with a lot of blade and still a handle secure enough to use, even with that large blade, and I think he did a great job. I'm very interested actually to get in front of the TheApostleP camera some more of Big Chris's work, because it's kind of in my wheelhouse. And I'd like to see one of his knives with his handle work. Although, you know, for a 1x30 and some rudimentary finishing tools, I think Drew did pretty well here. Kind of interesting though, the way he did his side to side contours. There's sort of a fat spot right here, which isn't necessarily where I would have put it. Then it tapers down toward the front, and then the knife actually gets narrower through here. And then it fattens back out at the end. Kind of a strange place for a palm swell, but I understand your difficulty there, Drew. Trust me, I do. But a really, really, really nice usable blade. And do guys check out Chris's website, because he might be somebody to watch. And I certainly do love the philosophy behind this blade. I mean, that is thin. I'm just dying to sharpen this. I'm dying to sharpen it. Drew, I'm going to send this back to you maybe middle of the week. If you want me to put a true convex on it, you email me, buddy. I might even take care of this notch for you. Pretty cool, pretty cool. Just thought you guys would like to see it. That's all for this one. Grace to you and peace, my friends, from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ, and remember the word. And Chris's little EDC fixed blade are sharp.